Hey guys, I am back. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mohamed Salah. I am, again, like I said, I'm back. I had some exams over the last month or so that were sort of killing my time, and I didn't have any time to make new videos. But I'm back. I have a couple ideas over the next few weeks for some videos, including this one, which is a really interesting concept. I've been sort of doing a lot of side research for fun on like philosophy and psychology, and I came across, some research work on recency bias, which I'm sure is something that you guys have heard of. And I was sort of thinking of it in the context of football, and I sort of got to thinking, and I realized that we sort of operate when we talk about players in the opposite of recency bias, as in we tend to hold past players in higher regard compared to modern players. And I was looking for a term for this, the opposite of recency bias. I didn't find anything like scientific and like a definitive definition, but I did find some people calling it a Golden Age Fallacy, which I think is an interesting concept. In other words, it's pretty much just nostalgia and really holding that in higher regard than anything in the modern day. You see it a lot with like music. I'm a little bit like that too. I prefer older music as well. But in terms of football, I was thinking the perfect example for what I'm trying to explain is Mohamed Salah. Now, I know you guys all know who Mohamed Salah is. A great player, of course, for Liverpool these days, but think about the greatest Premier League forwards there have ever been. You think of Thierry Henry, you think of Wayne Rooney, you think of Alan Shearer, maybe Didier Drogba, those types of players. Now, would you consider Mohamed Salah to be amongst that group of great Premier League forwards? I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. I would assume that your answer is going to be no, because my answer is no as well. And, the more I thought about why my answer was no, the more I realized that I can't actually explain why my answer is no. Because if I look at his stats, if I look at what he's accomplished, and he's won a title, he has scored a ridiculous amount of goals, he has, some of the best goal and assist stats the Premier League has ever seen. And he has the highest scoring individual season in Premier League history, which is an unbelievable achievement when players like Shearer and Thierry Henry were, when you surpass them in terms of individual seasons. And that floored me, because I was thinking, why don't I consider Mohamed Salah in this group? Like, no matter how hard I try to consider him there, I just can't do it. And I got to thinking, and I sort of realized that it's because I watch him on a weekly basis, and his weaknesses and his mistakes get amplified so often, and we see it on a weekly basis. And also because I'm a rival fan, I support Arsenal. I don't cheer for Mohamed Salah. So, on a weekly basis, my bias against Salah sort of develops. And as much as I like to be, impartial, and I like to look at things from a neutral perspective, it's difficult sometimes when you support a club and you're thinking of a rival player. And while I very much appreciate Salah, and I think he's a world-class player and has been for a few years now, I still don't like him as a player, if you get what I mean. And I was thinking, for the past, we tend to hold players in a higher regard because we didn't see them on a weekly basis, and because their weaknesses have not been amplified to us. So I'll give you an example. I support Arsenal, like I mentioned. So I'll give you an example of maybe Ruud van Nistelrooy was a great goal scorer for Manchester United, but he played in sort of the generation before I really started watching football, before I was old enough to really understand what was going on in the game and to, actually be a fan. So do I hate Ruud van Nistelrooy? No, I don't, because I don't know, I didn't watch him on a weekly basis. Of course, I know him. I've seen a lot of his clips and highlights. I know what type of player he was, but I didn't watch him on a weekly basis. I didn't have the opportunity to develop that bias against him on a weekly basis, and therefore someone said, Ruud van Nistelrooy is one of the greatest goal scorers in Premier League history. If one of you was to say, why didn't you name Ruud van Nistelrooy amongst Thierry Henry and Shearer? I would say, you know what, if you think he's in that group, then by all means, he's in that group, because I'm not sure, right? Like, I don't know exactly, because I don't know his weaknesses. I wasn't exposed to Ruud van Nistelrooy on a weekly basis, and therefore, I kind of hold him in a higher regard than I would Salah, right? Even though, it's very much possible that Mohamed Salah is a greater Premier League player than Ruud van Nistelrooy ever was. And I got to thinking about that, and I'm 99% sure this is true. right? What I've been saying. Although, you know, this is not based on any sort of scientific research. This is just my thoughts. I came across this concept and I sort of started developing it myself in my own brain. Kindly let me know if you agree or disagree. But in general, I think, you know, we tend to hold players of the past in such high regard, while we hold players of the current age in a much lower regard, because their weaknesses and their faults are amplified on a weekly basis to us. So, for example, maybe like Kevin De Bruyne, and we'll give an example of maybe Ricardo Kaká. Are they, you know, I feel like we consider them, Kaká and those players, to be of higher quality than Kevin De Bruyne, but you know, we see them as a million miles away, because we see Kevin De Bruyne on a weekly basis, while Kaká is like, whoa, like up here. But in terms of actual ability, do you think those guys were actually that far apart? Probably not, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Kevin De Bruyne is just like, I mean, maybe not just as good, but in that ballpark that Kaká was in as well. But we hold Kaká in such a high regard because, you know, he was in the past and he did so many great things, and he's a legendary player, whereas De Bruyne is not considered that yet, right? Modern day players, you know, we have weekly just like sort of like agendas against these players that sort of develop, you know, without, you know, forcing it. It just kind of happens. And yeah, this is sort of a concept I've been thinking of. I think I'll go with the term Golden Age Fallacy. You know, I think of players like Henry as players of the Golden Age, when you know, if they were playing now, you know, they're just as good as players like Lewandowski, players like Suarez. Those guys are pretty much on the level of players that Henry were back in the day. But we consider those players like Henry to be a higher regard just because of their name and their stature in the game, and because we haven't been able to watch them on a weekly basis. Of course, I am talking more to the younger generation, who I think is more of the population that watches my videos. I'm sure most of you didn't really get to watch Thierry Henry in his prime. And I'm sure for some of the older viewers who are watching, the same goes for you with players of the generation before yours. I feel like every generation is biased towards the players of the generation previous. And it's interesting because for most other things, we do have a recency bias. And we prefer the things that happen in our time. But for some reason, when it comes to football players, we kind of tend to drift towards the previous players and hold them in a higher regard, just because of the stories that we grew up hearing and because we didn't watch them on a weekly basis. But yeah, that was my video. It was a little bit of a ramble. I kind of just thought of this idea over the last day or two, and I thought I would just ramble about it on here and sort of kind of like a mental process while speaking, think more and more, and then delve a little bit deeper. I love doing that, to be honest. When I have conversations with my friends, that's what we do. You know, we just sit there and we talk, and then your ideas start developing as you talk. And it's a super interesting concept. I encourage you guys to try it. But yeah, let me know if you agree or if you disagree, or if there's anything you want to add. Of course, thanks for tuning in to this video. You can subscribe to my channel, please, if you like the content. And if you have an idea for a video I could do in the future, please give me a shout and I will definitely do that. But yeah, if you guys have anything to say or anything to comment about this concept that I've been talking about, kindly let me know and we can discuss it, because it's super interesting.